Hi, my name is Brianne Elfson and my group member is Tara Lazar, and this is our research methodology presentation. Our project will focus on the food safety regulation in regards to the different types of transport Dole uses in getting their bananas from Mexico to Calgary. Specifically, we found a banana in a Walmart in Strathmore that we are going to be tracking from.
So we looked at the different sea routes for Dole, as shown in the slides. The red dot is the Colmena farm, and we know that they take the bananas from sea, but we're trying to figure out how they get from San Diego to Canada. So that's where we're going to begin researching.
For the issues that we identified for our specific project, the first one that we wanted to is what types of produce does Dole sell, since that is what we are reporting on. Since we did pick bananas, they also did pineapples as well as a whole bunch of other different kinds of fruits and vegetables. So then it went on to where does Dole's bananas originate? We also found that answer, and it was previously mentioned. Next, we moved on to what types of regulations are there for food safety at each stage of transporting. We haven't yet identified this answer. Which company is in charge of complying with these regulations at each stage, i.e. is Dole or the transporting company if it is different. Otherwise, Dole may be in charge from stage 1 to the end transport, or it might transfer off. What types of transportation does Dole use to get the bananas from Mexico to Calgary? For instance, do they use railway, trucking? We know that they use sea at one point, but we don't know how they specifically get it to the end. Do they own the ships, or is it another company? So this goes back to the transportation. If they actually own the ships, then it would be implied that they are the ones in charge of making sure that they are regulating and being in compliance with the regulations. And finally, what are the consequences of non-compliance? This would again go to whether or not Dole is actually in charge, but even if they're not in charge, if there would be any underlying restrictions or regulations that they have to comply with, even though it's not their own company that is regulating with it anymore.
Okay, so for our research strategy, how we began is we researched produce companies and we discovered that Dole allows you to track the farm of your fruit. They have a little code on the bananas or pineapples, and you can use that and actually find out which farm they come from. So we went to Walmart and we chose a banana to track, and we found out it's from the Colima farm in Mexico. So we tracked all of Dole's sea routes from the Mexican farm. So the closest US port to Calgary would be San Diego port in California. We haven't figured out yet how they get from the California to Calgary. We identified types of containers Dole uses for their sea transport to ensure food freshness. They use climate control containers and refrigerated containers. And now we're beginning researching modes of transportation from San Diego port to Calgary.
For our future plans on what we're going to do and how we're going to proceed on this project, we're first going to research who regulates food safety at each stage and at each country along Dole's route, since it does have to go through 3 different countries, we're assuming, including Mexico, the States, and then finally Canada. We're assuming that each country probably has a little bit different regulations. So specifically, we're going to look at which government is in charge at which stage. Does Dole have their own guidelines that they follow, including like a CSR kind of arrangement? Are there different regulations for each type of transport, since we are looking at both sea, possibly trucking, maybe even rail? We're assuming that they probably have a little bit of different regulations since each one has a different speed and time that they're going to arrive. And finally, do the regulations change across borders? Second, we're going to research and determine who is in charge of complying with food safety. So for instance, is Dole in charge of making sure that this compliance is followed, or that the transportation company is in charge of this? Or if it is the transportation company, when specifically do they take over control from Dole? Finally, we're going to determine what consequences there could be if Dole is found not complying with the food safety regulations. So would Dole be, for instance, charged with penalties in a monetary value, or possibly even charged with remaking some of their controls? Who would the penalties be paid to? Would it be the company? Would it be people possibly affected? And finally, who can bring about the charges if they are found to be guilty? Would it be the transportation company? Would it be the actual company that is receiving the goods at the end? Or could it just be a normal consumer who is being found sick because of this?
Okay, these are the sources we've used for tracking the sea routes. We hope to get more feedback from you about anything we can change or if anything we're doing well. And thank you for listening to our presentation.